Welcome back, everybody. It's double coverage on the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. I'm joined, as always, by Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF on the Twitter machine. Fitzy, we are getting closer to the draft. You can smell it. The finish line is here. We are so close to, getting a lot more context to these players. We've reviewed them over and over. I'm ready to go, man. Are you ready?
Very ready, Boggs. 9 days to go as we record this. We're talking to Matt Waldman this week, which is certainly going to get the juices flowing for the draft. I'm really excited. And, like I've been just mainstreaming mock drafts, cranking out my own. Great time of year.
It's a lot of fun, and it's definitely smoke season as well. All kinds of new stuff popping up every day as to why some team is going to take a player for sure or why they will never take a player. But today on the show, of course, we will be answering questions from the Discord for the podcast, and we will also be talking about some mistakes to avoid. We've each come up with 3 main points of mistakes to avoid in your Dynasty leagues. So, Fitzy, I'm going to let you kick it off. What is your first bit of advice or mistake to avoid in Dynasty drafts and in Dynasty leagues?
Making terrible trade offers. And I'll once again cluck my tongue at the people who do this. Hopefully you aren't one of them. Hopefully you're someone who gets as annoyed as I do by ridiculous lowball trade offers. Someone decides that they want Drake London from me, but they don't want to give up any of their valuable assets in order to get Drake London. So I get offered Michael Wilson, Malachi Corley, and a second-round pick for Drake London. And, I'm always just going to decline those offers without a reply and without a counteroffer. And usually if I get 2 ridiculous offers from the same person, I won't even bother hitting decline. I will make them withdraw the trade. Like, I want them to have to pull that trade off the table. Like, if someone wants one of my valuable assets, why should the onus be on me to facilitate the shipping of my one valuable asset to that person? Like, I'm not going to work to make some sort of counter, and I'm certainly not going to take this awful deal that I'm, losing huge value on. We all have busy lives, Boggs, demanding jobs, families that require our time, friends, pets, errands that need to be done. Don't waste people's time.
You don't want to add in, replying to a terrible trade offer into that list, Fitzy?
What do you mean?
You don't want to slide just constantly replying to terrible trade offers into your list of things that you have to do.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. No need to explain myself for declining a low ball offer. And no one else should feel obligated to. And at least look at the other person's roster, figure out what they need and try to fill that need. Like, sometimes it's obvious the other person hasn't even taken a look at your roster. Like, I'll have a roster that's stacked at wide receiver, and I have one good running back, and some other manager will offer me a receiver for my only good running back. Like, what are you doing, man? Look at my roster. Do you think I'm going to take that? Like, work on constructing a balanced, mutually beneficial deal before you send a proposal, and ask yourself if you'd make the deal if you were in the other person's situation. If you can honestly say yes and you like the deal for yourself, then you have a reasonable offer to take to the other person.
I mean, and also an email never hurt or a text never hurt. If you look at a team and the trade doesn't make any sense contextually to their team, fire off an email to say, hey, I like this guy on your team. You could take a look at my team. What would it cost? You know what I mean? You can initialize that way and see what they like on your team or whatever. But I'm with you because it just extends the dance of trade negotiations, and I don't want an extensive dance in trade negotiations. I'd rather have it be kind of close for me to consider it, but you're right. I mean, there are people, and I feel like I have this in every league, that will send you a bad offer every once in a while. Like you said, they're looking for their team only. They're not putting any thought into why you would do this trade. So I am 100% with you. What is your second piece of advice of mistakes that people make in Dynasty leagues?
I would say, Boggs, that it is a mistake to straddle the fence between trying to contend and trying to rebuild. And I'm guilty of this with at least one of my current teams. I wasn't good enough to win a title last year. I was kind of flirting around in the hunt for one of the last playoff spots. I should have been a seller late in the year. I didn't sell. I finished 7-7 and missed the playoffs by 1 game. And now I'm stuck with this purgatory type of roster where I can't win a title in 2025 and still need to make a bunch of rebuilding moves. And if I had maybe started taking my medicine last year, I'd be further along in the rebuilding process. And maybe my ETA for title contention would be 2026 instead of 2027. So don't straddle the fence. Either you're a contender or a rebuilder. Don't get into a spot where you're not sure which of those categories you fall into.
Would you say that there's also something to understanding, like, let's say, for instance, your team that you are kind of on the fence, right? Let's say you're 5 weeks in and you're 1-4. Is that the time to punch out? Or maybe it's even you went in thinking you were a contender and you start out real bad. Is it time to punch out? Do you think people are also guilty of maybe holding on to the dream a little bit too long? Or would you rather hold on and see where you're at than sell and regret it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the fast or slow start thing is sort of a false indicator, Boggs. Like, you can have a really good team and just have terrible luck the first month of the season and be stuck at 1-4. But, like, you shouldn't all of a sudden just ditch everything and rebuild because you're down on that team. Like, maybe your team really is still a contender and, like, try to hang on. And sometimes you can get just crazy horseshoe lucky and get to 4-1 with a mediocre team and kid yourself into thinking you're a contender when really, if you look at your roster, you're not.
Yeah, I've had that a couple times. You beat some of the mediocre teams in your league, like you said. You just had the luck of the draw on the schedule, and you play the bottom feeders for the first month, and then you get to playing the teams that are scoring a bunch of points. But most of the time, you have context in, like, how many points am I scoring versus the rest of the pack? You know what I mean? If you went in thinking that this team is bad and you start 3-2 or 4-1, but you're still third from the bottom in scoring, your team's still not good. You just were lucky in your draws. That's all. So I understand what you're saying there. And it's a big point because, do I want to keep these guys? And I'll get into a little bit because one of mine is going to be about, getting out before the drop-off, right? So there's an age, and there's an age demarcation for most players, and you should know what those are. But your last piece of advice, and then I will shoot my 3 out here.
Don't build your dynasty roster on a foundation of running backs. And I feel like this should be obvious.
This seems pointed towards me, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, we need running backs to be successful in fantasy football, for sure. I mean, you can't not have running backs. But as far as laying the foundation, I think doing it on a foundation that is primarily running back based is building a house of cards. Running backs have shorter shelf lives than players at other positions, and the bottom can fall out pretty quickly on a running back's value. Like, Kenneth Walker seemed like a blue chip asset just a year or two ago. Maybe he still could be, but he does not look like a foundational dynasty piece anymore. Tony Pollard, highly regarded dynasty asset just 2 years ago. Rachaad White, 1 year ago, seemed like a fairly valuable roster piece. Now he's a backup. And, yes, you do need those running backs, but first build a foundation at wide receiver and if you're in a super flex league, at quarterback, then go to work on the running back position.
Yeah, and look, as much as I want to stick up for running backs, this is the correct take. I mean, running backs have a short shelf life. I'll say that 3 times fast. I barely got that out. But they have the short shelf life, and they should be the last piece added. The 26 is the drop off for running backs, so they should be the last piece added. The wide receivers last much longer. The good established quarterbacks last much longer. So yes, as much as I love my running backs, and I do tend to do that in redraft, that's not what you should be looking to do in Dynasty. They don't last as long. So there you'll get your freaks of nature on occasion. Yeah, but we'll get into that when we get into mine here. But
and Boggs, just one point of clarification. Running back is by far the strongest position in this year's rookie draft. I am not telling you not to draft running backs in this year's rookie draft. This is and like generally I'd rather draft running backs, I think, than trade for them. And this is an excellent year to draft running backs.
Well, and also, if you've been doing things correctly and using that advice that Fitz just gave you, that he's given to you for a bunch of years in a row that we've been doing this podcast, this is the perfect draft class to fill in what you should need, if you're doing it right. If you're building through wide receiver, tight end, quarterback first, and now you're adding the running backs, this is where you get your value. So, yes, absolutely. I am 100% with you. In that. We'll get to my 3 in just a second, but I got to tell you guys, if you want a chance to win a signed DeAndre Swift Bears jersey for free, FREE, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now, drop a comment below on any Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast video, and that is it. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. All right, Fitzy, my 3, my number 1, which I've already talked about a little bit, is get out before the drop-off on your players. It's, a hard line to walk, but the saying goes, I'd rather get out early than stay too late, right? I'd rather sell early than hold on and get nothing from this player. There are freaks of nature. Derrick Henry is a freak of nature. But running backs typically peak at age 26, wide receivers at 29, tight ends at 28. And let's not forget that injury history is huge in there as well, right? So after a major injury, a guy may not be the same. So you kind of have to pay attention to that as well. It's a tightrope to walk, but there are examples here. Running backs over 26, you're probably not trading Barkley, but Jacobs is over 26. CMC, Kamara, Mixon, David Montgomery, Najee, Connor, Ramondre, Pollard. If your team is bad and you have one of these players on your roster, you should be trading them right now. They're not going to help you in the long run because they're about to start to crater in most situations. Maybe 1 or 2 of these guys makes it out and has a longer shelf life than most, and some of them already have. Kamara has, Mixon has, right? But they're older. And we know the drop is coming sooner rather than later. For wide receivers, Fitzy, it was Terry McLaurin, Tyreek, Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, Debo, Godwin, Devontae, Jacoby, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Hopkins, Diggs. Not that none of these names are surprising. You know this, but you should actively be looking to trade these guys. And at tight ends, over 28, Kittle, Andrews, Njoku, Jonnu, Goddard, Kelsey, Ingram, Schultz. All these guys are over 28 and most likely to be on the back half of their career. So, like I said, it's a hard line to walk. Sometimes you will end up selling a player early, but in general, those are the ages where you start to see the production dip massively. And like 32 for any player is ancient in the NFL. So that would be my first bit, is just to get out before, and there should be, the good team should be buying some of these players as rentals because they don't need to take shots. They don't need to hold those guys at the end of the roster. They need guys that can play. So, that's my first piece. Fitzy, what do you think of the get out before the drop-off?
Yeah, generally I agree with that one, Boggs. The one caveat I would issue for that one would be, say, if you're a contending team, I'm willing to ride it out with George Kittle and ride him into the ground. If I have a winning team, like I don't want to, if I feel like I'm a title contender, I'm not taking a second-round rookie pick for George Kittle. I'd rather just ride with Kittle, get premium production from the tight end position, and going on somebody. Like, it's fine to have a couple of old players on your team, especially if, I take that back. If you are pointed toward a 2-12 season, you should not have any players over 30 on your roster. If you're contending, it's fine to have 2 or 3 guys or more like that. Just make sure they're serving a purpose for you in the here and now. If you're not going to be a contender for 2 years, what is the point of holding on to George Kittle, by which time, he's probably going to be a much lesser producer?
Yeah, I mean, if you have him in your fantasy broadcaster league in a couple years, then fine. But you want him when he's good on the field. My second piece here, and another one, easier said than done, but it's to try to max out your picks. And what that means is, if your team sucks and you have number one overall and your team is really bad, you should be trying to get out of number one overall and collect more picks to, put that talent across on your roster. There's someone that is, really needs Ashton Genty this year, you know what I mean? Or would pay up a ton to get him. So you should at least be listening. It doesn't mean, go out and trade your high picks to stack a bunch of picks. It's just you should be listening, right? And the pick values change. They are different right now than they will be in the Monday after the draft. There's going to be a much different value in your picks right now. So, if you've been collecting picks, you have multiple, try to move up to get your guy. You know what I mean? Because sure, if I see a tier fall off after one player and I'm 3 picks away from that, and I know my guy is probably going to go in there, try to move up. Specifically, if you've been stacking up picks, trade a late pick and whatever your close pick is and say, hey, I really have someone on the board. I want to move up. What will it cost me? Maybe there's a player they like on your bench, whatever it is. Max out those picks to build your team the best. Each class is different, of course, but pushing your chips in sometimes means selling your picks to get that win now guy. And post-draft, I would say everyone needs to make your own tiers and know who is worth it, who you want to move up for, what the line of demarcation is for your team and the players that you want to build. So just kind of know, and this could be as simple as knowing who is a fan of what team in your league. You know what I mean? You can max out your pick by, if you have a bunch of Giants fans and Shedeur Sanders ends up there, you take Shedeur Sanders, now let's sell him to the highest bidder of the Giants fans. You know what I mean? So it's just do everything in the playbook to potentially max out your picks because their value is different all the time. Different parts of the year, your pick is going to be valued at a different level. There's some people that are just always trying to play upside. So, they'll pay a little bit more for picks. There's teams that don't care about picks because their roster is solid. Try to get picks from them in trade. So it's just about collecting and maximizing your picks as best as you can and knowing when to sell them, which is easier said than done, yes, but knowing the context, knowing the draft class, knowing what's coming in next year helps a lot as well. So that is my second piece of advice. What do you think of that one, Fitzy?
I think it's very good advice, Boggs. And I'll just add, I don't really have too much to add, but definitely know the value of your rookie picks and do some mocks. Do some rookie mocks, and you can do that. I'll just make a little pitch here on the FantasyPros Mock Draft Simulator, which you can set to rookie drafts. Enter the number of teams in your league. Enter, linear style. I assume everyone does linear, not snake, and you're off to the races. Can do super flex. You can do 1 QB. And I will say, maybe some of the people here, if you did a mock rookie draft maybe a month and a half ago, you might have run into something in Superflex where the quarterback values were pumped up too high, and we had your boy Quinn Ewers occasionally sneaking into the first round, Boggs. That has been fixed. You are not going to see Quinn Ewers in the first round where he has no business being, and we do not pump up the value of guys like that and Kyle McCord and Will Howard to the moon anymore. So you get very realistic mocks. I did a bunch of mocks the other day just to make sure we had gotten the bugs out of that one, and it was looking a lot better. So get your reps in.
Man, Fitzy.
Yes,
very
sir.
smart. Way to do it here. And my last piece of advice is work the wire, especially early and late. If your league is shallow, there should be good players available, and if your league is deep, you should have players to drop. So there is really no excuse to not work the wire. It seems like there are a lot of guys early in the season that get picked up and make a difference. Bucky was one of those guys. I think he was 17% rostered last season when the year started. A lot of those numbers are redraft. They're not all for dynasty leagues, right? But Darnold was available on some wires. There's, and at the end of the year, also, if your team is out of it, Justin Fields was just hanging out on a bunch of wires. Jordan Mason, Isaac Garendo, Parker Washington, who has a starting job now, Brenton Strange, who has a starting job now. Like, these aren't make or break players by any stretch of the imagination, but it's better than the injured guy on your roster or the bye week ad that you picked up that didn't do anything. So, working the wire constantly, and I'm not saying spend a ton early. Spending the money wholly depends on the player that you're picking up, but just pay attention, make sure you're on top of it, and every move counts, man. That's just, and that's sometimes I struggle with. Sometimes I have too many teams, and it gets a little bit overwhelming. I'm trying to cut back on teams in recent years here, so to get it, kind of trimmed down so I have enough time to work the wire for every team. But working the wire is almost 50% of it. The draft is the most important. The rookie draft is also more important than working the wire. But working the wire is a big chunk of it, and there's always guys that come out of nowhere every single year to be big-time contributors and boost their value a ton, more than that guy at the end of your bench in most scenarios. So if you built the perfect roster and you don't need to do that stuff, great. That's awesome. But it's just such a rare occasion. You need to be working that wire.
Yeah. Remember James Robinson a few years ago, Boggs? Jaguars, running back. He was one of my favorite waiver wire pickups. He paid off for me that rookie year. I think he came back in year 2 and might have had just under right around 1,000 combined yards from scrimmage and like 8 touchdowns. So yes, you can find gems on the wire, even in the leagues where it's 12 teams and 30-man rosters. I know sometimes it feels like you're chasing tumbleweeds out there on the waiver wire, but make sure we do a lot of waiver pickups if you play in as many leagues as we do. Sometimes the temptation in Dynasty is just to let it go and not put in any claims. Like, I'm exhausted from doing all the claims in my redraft leagues. You owe it to yourself to at least take a quick look-see every week and see if there's anything out there that interests you.
And at the end of the year, look up and see who's going to be the free agents the next year. See who's behind them. Maybe there's some good talent behind some of these players that you like. And, also, there are talented players on the wire that are just getting no touches in a lot of scenarios as well. So, just be mindful of the wire, I think, is the big point to make there. I got to remind you guys that about Reality Sports Online, and by now most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. If you think it sounds complicated, it's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. If you think you're among the fantasy elite, this is the platform to test your mettle. If you're still not sure, you can test your general manager skills for FREE free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. To hear our Discord Q&A, check out the full podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, join our Discord at fantasypros.com/chat and tune in to double coverage at 5 p.m. Eastern every single Tuesday for the month of April. Join the fun and get your questions answered and be on the show.